How are y'all doing? I'm Pastor Lance. We are in our third week of our series, Justice for All. And as we start, I'm going to pose a question. I want you to ask somebody that's sitting next to you. Is it ever okay to lie? Is it ever okay to lie? Take some time, ask someone that's sitting next to you. As we kind of come back from that question, I want to share a story about a time that I was in high school. Just like last week, sharing a story that I was in high school. And I remember me and two of my friends, my buddy John and another friend, were waiting on the bus stop, as we often did, after coming from school in order to get on the bus, go home, do whatever we needed to do, whatever teenagers do. And as we were on the bus stop, we had a police officer approach us with a gun drawn, telling us to get on the ground. And as we were on the ground, I had a million things going through my mind. Like, I don't often have guns pulled on me or drawn on me. And so I was wondering, dang, is this it? Or what's going on? Or what's happening? Or what's going to happen after this period, which was like a minute, felt like it was, hours. And an officer tells us to get up. And we asked the officer, we're teenagers, we asked the officer, like, wait, what's going on? Why did you do that? What happened? And he told us that he was looking for a black male who was 6 foot, and he had cornrows, and that he was fleeing from the scene of some crime, and that he was looking for him. Now, none of me nor my friends had cornrows or fit parted like a lot of the description of what the police had said, and it felt odd. It felt scary to have a gun drawn on you, but it felt really odd to come to the realization of we weren't supposed to have that happen to us. We weren't supposed to have those things happen to us, and we felt wronged. It felt a bit of injustice. When we're accused of something that we didn't do, it's really frustrating. And whether it's a major accusation or something small or it ain't important, you feel angry, you feel powerless, and you feel like you're afraid, or maybe you feel like all of those things. So, and when you're innocent, false accusations are always going to feel unjust. We felt like it was very unjust for that to happen to us because it was. They are. False accusations are unjust. Lying on people is wrong. And last week, we talked about how when we were facing unjust, cruel treatment from other people, it can be hard to keep your head straight. And how do you stay positive in these tough situations? How do you stay moving forward? How do you set the record straight? How do you actually get justice when you feel like that something that's been unjust has happened to you? When we talk about those things, and we talk about what we're accused of, and what we know we didn't do, our integrity is called into question. But what is even integrity? If you are a person of integrity, it would mean that you're dependable, you don't change, you're trustworthy. It's okay to change your clothes, but you don't change your character, your person. And no matter the circumstance, you don't fall apart when tough things happen or things are thrown around you. You're not indestructible, but when it comes to your character, it takes a lot to make you crack. And you choose what's right and true no matter what, who you're with and what's going on and who's looking. And with that in mind, let's head back to the story of Joseph we've been in Genesis. And so far, here's what happened. Joseph's dad, Jacob, favored Joseph over his other brothers. His other brothers wasn't feeling it. They was hating tremendously. So much so that they wanted to kill him. And instead of killing him, Reuben convinced him to throw him in a pit. And his Joseph's brother, Reuben. And when Reuben was gone, his brother said, hey, let's sell him into slavery. So they sold him into slavery, and we're picking back up from Joseph being in captivity. And so let's read Genesis 39, verse 1 through 23. I'm going to try to give you a bit of time to read it. Take time, read it. If you want to share split verses with a person that's sitting next to you, take time to read it. So one of the first things we see here is that Joseph has favor. He has favor, and Potiphar sees Joseph, had favor with God, and he wanted to be a part of it. And so he made Joseph one of his, I guess you would say, managers, business managers, to look over his entire estate. He had a lot of power, a lot of influence once he was doing this. And everything was going good. Everything is going well in Joseph's life, who, mind you, he was just sold into slavery. So to have this happen is quite a turn of events. But what we see is that as Joseph is doing his thing, and he has favor from God, and he's working for Potiphar, Potiphar's wife attempts to pursue Joseph against his will. And we see that because Joseph is probably a handsome man and all of those things. Joseph could have been selfish, and he could have taken advantage of this situation. All right, he could have done what was not of integrity, and he could have he would maybe have taken vengeance on the slave master by disrespecting him and pursuing his wife. But Joseph was a man of God and was committed to keeping his integrity intact, and so he refused. And Potiphar's wife wasn't having it when Joseph said no. She was so angry that she tore off Joseph's coat, and she called for the guards, and she told them that the Hebrew slave, and at that time that would have probably been closer to a slur, this dirty, less than human person had tried to rape her. And because of him not wanting her to be pursued by her and wanting to be a person of integrity, we see she lied, and Joseph was sentenced to prison without trial. They didn't even ask his opinion. They didn't even ask if the things were true or not. They just went along with a false accusation that was made against him. See, the important thing to know in here is that this was another injustice that was happening. He was just sold into slavery by his brothers. And we see that there's a false accusation from Potiphar's wife that lands him in jail. And Joseph was the victim of this injustice, but instead of going for vengeance, getting angry, and all the other stuff, and he probably had a lot of disappointment. He was probably really distraught. He probably had a lot of fear as to what was going to happen in his future, the same way that I was on the ground with my friends when a police officer pulled a gun on us. And Joseph held on to hope. All right, we talked about that last week. And to his integrity. And as a result, God was with him. God never left him. And even the prison guard grew to trust him because of the favor God had on his life and his integrity. This is what it looks like to be a person of integrity. It doesn't mean you'll never encounter difficulty, that you're not going to face anything hard. We are definitely going to face hard things in this life. But when you do, you'll be able to withstand it, and so will your character. You won't be able to be shaken. And there's a passage in Psalms that captures this kind of integrity that Joseph had. And that's what we should seek to do as well. As in Psalm chapter 1, verse 1 through verse 3. And it reads, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers." See, this sounds like Joseph. He was accused of something he never did and was punished for it, right? Put in jail. But through it all, here's what Joseph did. And if you're taking notes, you take this down. He held on to his character, or he held on to his integrity and his character, right? He trusted God would let truth win in the end, even if it took time. Instead of focusing on the people who hurt him, he focused on the building and maintaining of a character that God honored. So next time you're accused of something you didn't do, you feel like you have that injustice happen to you, just let's follow Joseph's example. And if you're taking notes, write this down. It's very important, because integrity can withstand injustice. Integrity can withstand injustice. Being wrongly accused of a crime is flat out wrong, but it still happens today. And did you know that according to the Equal Justice Initiative led by Bryan Stevenson, 1 out of every 9 people currently on death row in America are actually innocent? Injustice, it can happen anywhere, even in our justice systems. And because of this huge injustice, Bryan Stevenson founded this organization, the Equal Justice Initiative, in order to provide legal and aid to people who have been wrongly convicted. And one of those cases is a guy, Walter McMillan, whose story sounds like a lot like Joseph. And he was sentenced to death for murder of a woman he did not kill. His trial was a sham, his alibi was ignored, and the legal system overlooked the fact that Walter was a man of character and integrity. Let's take a look.
Verdict and imposed the death penalty, and he spent the next 6 years on death row. When I started working on the case, they had convicted him based on the testimony of one man. And I found out that this man had been coerced to testify falsely. He just admitted to me that it was all a lie. And then he told me that he had been recorded trying to persuade them that he shouldn't do this. And so we started looking, and we found tapes where the police had interrogated this man while they were coercing him to testify falsely. And for some bizarre reason, they tape recorded those sessions. So the witness was actually on the tape saying, quote, "You want me to frame an innocent man for murder, and I don't feel right about that." And the police officer was saying, "Well, you better give us what we want, or we're going to put you on death row." And he made lots of statements to lots of people that he was lying, that this was all a frame-up. They got some other people to testify falsely. And they then suppressed all of that evidence. Obviously, they didn't give it to the lawyers or give it to the jury. And so we found the evidence, went to court, and there's a case called Brady versus Maryland, which holds that the state is obligated to turn over anything that is favorable to the defendant. And when they fail to turn that over, your conviction is unreliable and you're entitled to a new trial. And that was the basis upon which we won.
I don't know who you most connected with in the story. Walter, Bryan, or Walter who was falsely accused, Bryan who had to stick up for the person who was falsely accused or treated unjustly and does it for others. Or maybe it's even one of the people falsely accused Walter because you've been in a situation where you treated someone cruelly or unfairly, or you mischaracterized someone, or you misspoke to someone. No matter who you relate to, the same truth applies, is that our integrity matters, especially in the face of injustice. 4 things I want you to focus on as we talk about how do we develop this kind of integrity that comes from God. Because it's not going to come flippantly. It's going to take intentionality. And one of the things, if you're taking notes, write these down, is to choose justice privately. And like we said, justice is choosing what is right, and you don't have to wait for an injustice to happen to choose justice. You can do it in small amounts in your everyday life when nobody is looking. If you know something is wrong, or if you know something needs to happen, right? Somebody, litters at your school or something like that, and it makes the hallway dirty, you know that you can pick up that piece of paper or throw it away. Or maybe there's somebody that needs help, and you don't have to be prompted to wait on doing that. Speaking of, another way that you can develop this godly integrity is by choosing justice publicly. We said this before, right? Justice is love in action. That means that we have to start justice and choosing it with our public actions. Find a need or an injustice that you care about, and get to work. Don't wait for nobody to tell you what you need to do. You know what's right from wrong and what God has called you to do, and you know that He values everyone. We are all image bearers of Christ. And so we all maintain that value. And so you don't need to be wait to be told to get to work when it comes to doing what's right. Do your history and write some new history. God is a God of justice, and he created you to be a person of justice too. Third thing is pursue God's justice. When you find an injustice that you care about, keep learning and keep asking questions. And don't forget to pray for strength, because it's gonna get really hard, because justice doesn't come easy. We saw what happened in Joseph's life. We saw that he was sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and we see that he has these pattern of things that happen. But the good news is that God's power is perfected in our weak spots and in the moments that we feel like giving up. When we feel like we're giving up, that's when God does the most work. And ask God to help you stay in the work you've decided to dedicate your time to and time and energy to. So when you see things that aren't right, you have the right perspective on how to pursue those ways of justice. And also pursue God's mercy. Pursue God's mercy. Sometimes we think mercy is the opposite of justice, but in God's kingdom, mercy and justice, they coexist. When we talk about mercy, when you see an injustice, don't look at a person that that did the crime, or the person that falsely accused somebody of a crime, as less than human, because they also are image bearers. And see them as humans, just like us, that need love from God. And ask for help seeing them the way that God sees them. Pray for them and watch how it changes you. The last thing, stick with it. Being a person of integrity in the midst of an injustice is a hard and long road, but it's necessary and it's worth it, because sticking with it is what helps build godly integrity and character. Peace.